Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, you're going to meet a very successful CEO of a company that helps other companies raise money. You'll hear his incredible journey just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, the lifeblood of any company is capital. If you're not raising capital, if you're not paying your bills, you go out of business. And we know that all too well, that something like 9 out of 10 small businesses will fail within the first 5 years. And so much of that has to do with money flow. Somebody who's an expert in this is my next guest, David Lopez. He's the CEO of Summa. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
Absolutely. Well, I want people to know your background because you have a tremendous track record. Tell us from the very beginning, where did you get your start?
Well, I started in one of the big consulting firms known as PricewaterhouseCoopers. It's also known as PwC. And I started my career there, starting with building models, and went from building models to telling stories around those numbers. And over time, I got to work in different industries and worked at another big 4 company called Deloitte. And I continued to build my career, started learning a little bit about leadership too, a little bit of influence so that the stories had a little bit more impact. And then decided to start Summa to help companies raise money.
All right, tell us about the name. It's an interesting name. Where did you come up with Summa?
Well, Summa it's part of a Latin word that stands for summary, and we like to be succinct in our stories. We understand that some stories need context, but overall, if the story doesn't have appeal and can be shared, it's hard for you to be memorable. Yes. We want those stories to be memorable.
We're going to pull up your website, and as we scroll down the website, talk about the kinds of industries that you like to work in.
Sure. We're focused on manufacturing companies. We like hardware, for the most part, but we've worked with other industries like healthcare as well, and medtech and medical technologies. And overall, we focus on building the infrastructure that makes companies succeed in their capital raise.
Yes, and I met you through Success North Dallas. Shout out to Casey Haston. You really owned the room this morning at Success North Dallas. Let's talk about 2025 and specifically Texas. I mean, this is really the land of opportunity, isn't it?
It is. I think a lot of companies are realizing that in terms of market size, but also the level of regulation that is favorable to companies, big companies and big entrepreneurs. The names are very clear. Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, are moving operations either partially or totally to Texas because they see the opportunity here. And with that, a lot of money is following.
Outstanding. Let's show your blog page because you're prolific when it comes to writing. Tell me about how you choose the topics that you write about.
Well, that's a good question. Sometimes it's based on context. Sometimes we just come up with things that are relevant to the market, like how to manage your cash and how is that going to impact your bottom line. But at the end of the day, we try to add value to the readers so that they can incorporate that into their businesses. Sure. Mostly focused for businesses, but some of our blogs are, can be used by regular people, without a company.
So for the average person who's never run into somebody like you, I guess you could go to your bank and get a loan, but the rates are not as favorable as they could be if you raised it another way.
Correct. I always tell my clients that the process of raising capital is the process of building trust. And that starts with, providing numbers that are realistic, right? I've seen, anything from exponential growth to 10x every year. And even though that might be true, it's not always taken as something realistic, especially if somebody's not fully, attuned with the company.
Sure.
And banks and investors are very aware of, they need somebody to manage their money in a responsible way. So if somebody is not building trust through the right numbers or having a conservative approach to the market, it may sometimes create a little distrust. And with that, you might lose some deals.
So without naming the client, what's one of your favorite success stories?
It's taking a $500 million fund off the ground. That's been quite a good journey for me. Very close to my heart, but also working with amazing people in the life sciences arena. And it's been really fruitful, both personally and professionally.
And David, you've used the word storytelling several times.
Yes.
Why is that so important?
Well, I think that the numbers on their own are not sufficient, and I think finance has this reputation that it's just numbers. I believe finance is 90% storytelling and 10% numbers. The numbers just need to back the story.
Yes.
And we get lost in translation trying to get to the perfect ROI or the perfect returns that investors, we think, are interested in, instead of threading a story around those numbers and saying, this is how we plan to achieve this is why we think this way, and this is how we're going to mitigate the risks that you can anticipate.
Sure. And I know you're a man of integrity, so you don't take everybody's money. So tell us what attracts you to a client. Can you tell in the first hour that this would be a good match?
Yeah, I think I can tell within the first 5 to 10 minutes. The conversation is cordial. There's space for both sides to talk. There are no accelerated or a little precocious attempts to,
yes,
we need to get to this number, here are the results. I believe that the relationship has to be built as well. It has to be both sides. I've experienced that doesn't always is true.
Yes.
And I think that building relationships, just like building capital, is a process that needs to be nurtured over time.
So do you ever run into a situation where you're coming in and their books are a mess and their books are just not going to tell the story that you need to tell?
Yeah.
And so you help them with that?
Yes. So I can help. Well, first of all, I don't do bookkeeping per se, but I can tell them we need to rearrange the books. I usually suggest somebody to take over,
yes,
and look at the books for them. And after that's corrected, I take over and see what we can do. But I don't manage,
right.
I don't do corrections on their books.
Okay. So, David, we've got about a minute left. So look into the camera on the left and talk to that person who might be watching right now who says, I think I need to reach out to David and have a conversation.
Right. Well, one thing I can say is, it's something I've repeated quite a bit in my career, finance is like the brakes of a car. And it's not because we want operations to go slower. It's actually the opposite. If you don't trust the brakes of your car, you are never going to go at top speed. And so I take my career as the brakes that tell you you're going too fast, you're going to burn too much gas, you're not going to be able to make it to where you want to make it. But I can also tell you, you're good to go, your tank is full, let's go.
Love it. Yeah, you are a great storyteller.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on the show. We're going to leave you with his website, which is summa.consulting. The great David Lopez. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.